While the world is captivated by the dazzling facades of futuristic cities, megacities, and technological prowess, there is an invisible China that has quietly existed for millennia. Today, True Horizons takes you back to the core soul of a civilization where time seems to have forgotten the rhythm of reality. Hidden behind mist-shrouded mountain ranges, ancient villages, sacred cliffs, and roads forgotten by history lies a different China. Quieter, more mysterious, and more profound than anything we have ever seen. Before it was a nation, it was a geographical masterpiece. Before philosophy, there was only earth and sky. China began not with war or measurements, but with the vastness of its distances, the depth of its stillness, and the endlessness of its millennia-old mountains and forests. To the southwest, the Himalayas stand tall like a colossal wall of ice. To the north and northwest, vast deserts and steppes, including the Gobi Desert, stretch across a harsh frontier. They served as barriers against external invasion and offered early Chinese civilization a rare opportunity for internal development and the preservation of its distinct identity. And within that natural enclosure, two rivers began to write the first long chapter of China's story. The Yellow River, rising high on the plateau of Tibet and running for 3,395 miles, it cuts across northern China, carrying immense loads of fine yellow silt from the Loess Plateau, the sediment that gave the river its name and helped define its character. Along its middle and lower reaches, some of the earliest centers of farming, settlement, and dynastic power took shape. This river nurtures its people through its harsh conditions, forcing them to be resilient. From dike breaches and changes in course to heightened vigilance and unwavering determination, the Yangtze River possesses a completely different character. With its greater scale and more stable flow, it became the main artery of southern China, connecting fertile plains, inland basins, and the world of water, trade, and rice cultivation. If the Yellow River symbolizes the resilience of the North in the face of adversity, the Yangtze represents the movement and prosperity of the South. This contrast both sustains life and creates two extremes in the thinking and spirit of Chinese civilization. For thousands of years, the inhabitants of northern China have adapted to the dense sedimentary layers of the Loess Plateau by carving their dwellings into the mountains. These cave dwellings, also known as yaoang, are not temporary shelters, but rather an ingenious architectural solution to the climate and terrain. Thanks to the natural insulating properties of loess, the yaoang maintain a stable temperature year-round, integrating the structure with the geological features. And that may be where the deepest truth of early China begins. If mountains and rivers are the physical form, then writing is the soul that preserves the millennia-old memories of China. Long before the rise and fall of dynasties, Chinese writing began its long journey through time. The earliest known forms appeared on the bones of oracles during the Shang dynasty, inscribed on turtle shells and ox bones for ritual divination. From these earliest inscriptions, writing continued to develop through bronze inscriptions, seal script, cursive script, and later the graceful elegance of calligraphy. Chinese writing became a powerful cultural link, strong enough to bind a vast land with diverse landscapes, accents, and local traditions. While spoken language may vary from region to region, writing provides absolute continuity and preservation across time and space. Over time, calligraphy has become an art form of the soul through the combination of brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. Calligraphy demands rigorous training in both physical and mental aspects. It is a unique artistic heritage where each stroke carries the weight of self-cultivation and personal character. Therefore, when we look at Chinese characters, we are looking at the bloodline of a civilization carrying memories from millennia past. Chinese ideology is a multi-layered structure where social order and national power are built upon the discipline of Confucianism and legalism. While Taoism and Buddhism offer spiritual balance and harmony with nature, Confucianism became the moral framework of society, teaching that order begins in the family with filial piety, proper conduct, and respect for interpersonal relationships. For over 2,000 years, Confucian values have shaped how people understand duty, hierarchy, and the meaning of an orderly life. Unlike the strictness of Confucianism, Taoism focuses on the laws of the universe's movement through the philosophy of Wu, non-action. Actions are taken in accordance with the natural flow rather than forceful actions. This is the origin of the idea of absolute harmony between heaven and man, yin and yang, inner self and outer environment. If Confucianism was the moral foundation, then legalism was the instrument of power. This ideology prioritized discipline and coercion to maintain national stability. It was this strict method of governance that allowed the Qin dynasty to mobilize enormous resources to unify the territory and build architectural wonders. The legacy left by legalism is a model of enduring centralized governance where social order was established by the power of law. Then Buddhism arrived, bringing with it a different interior world, one shaped by compassion, quiet reflection, and the search for release from suffering. As it took root in China, it transformed not only belief but artistic imagination. Cave sanctuaries, temple architecture, sculpture, and sacred imagery all began to carry its presence, turning mountainsides and stone walls into places of meditation and awe. These ideologies established an invisible but solid order, nurturing the enduring vitality of Chinese civilization amidst all historical upheavals. To fully understand the essence of this civilization, one must examine how abstract ideas are materialized through the rigorous discipline of Kung Fu. We are in a real Kung Fu school where strength is not defined by physique or the weight of dumbbells. Every exercise is geared towards mastery through discipline and perseverance. The essence of Kung Fu is not simply martial arts. It means skill acquired through time, discipline, and relentless effort. This system of discipline views nature as the original curriculum of Kung Fu. The movements mimicking tigers, cranes, or snakes are not merely imitations of form, but a process of deciphering the principles of power, balance, and precision of these animals. Kung Fu demonstrates that optimal strength does not come from pure muscular pressure, but from rhythm, control, and sophisticated motor thinking. Behind every movement lies the interplay of motion and stillness. Every movement stems from the coordination of breath, posture, and intention. Energy directs power, while meditation refines discipline. Only when the will reaches a state of absolute self-mastery does fighting technique truly transform into a journey of self-cultivation. So today we're not here to witness the world's strongest man. No warm-up, no excuses, only pain, only focus. Perhaps the pinnacle of this invisibility lies right beneath our feet. An empire yet to awaken. The mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang. Beneath the dust of time in Xi'an, an emperor reigns in absolute silence. Here there are no towering monuments or magnificent palaces proclaiming his presence. Instead, it is a world guarded by tens of thousands of terracotta warriors lined up and ready for battle for over 2,000 years. This is the legacy of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, who unified the empire and his ambition for power beyond the gates of hell. According to UNESCO, this is not simply a tomb, but a colosalary complex with nearly 200 auxiliary pits spread over an area of more than 21 square miles. Looking down, the ground seemed to open up into life-sized ranks of warriors, horses, and chariots arranged as if a battle could begin at any moment. Some stood upright and alert. Others appeared calm, almost contemplative. No two of these statues were alike. From the vigilant young soldiers to the somber generals, every hairstyle, armor, and facial expression was incredibly lifelike. The army was arranged in a precise military formation, including vanguard archers, infantry, chariot drivers, and defenders, adhering to the strategic logic of the Qin dynasty. Archaeologists have unearthed thousands of statues, often thought to be around 8,000 life-sized soldier statues. But the emperor's central tomb remains unopened. This is not simply an archaeological excavation, but the fragile boundary between reality and myth, where history begins with mysterious whispers. If the tomb of Qin Shi Huang symbolizes the ambition of the first emperor to unify China, then the Forbidden City shows how that power was organized and maintained over the centuries. Located in the heart of Beijing on the city's north-south axis, the Forbidden City was built by Emperor Yonga in 1406 and first opened in 1420. Designed as the symbolic center of the world, it served as the place where the emperor ruled. Spread across roughly 178 acres, this immense complex was the political and ritual heart of China for nearly 5 centuries. It was home to 24 emperors, 14 of the Ming dynasty and 10 of the Qing. And every courtyard, gate, terrace, and roof line was shaped to reinforce hierarchy, discipline, and imperial distance. This complex is divided into two distinct parts according to the yin-yang philosophy. First is the front court or yang part with the largest and tallest structure in the complex, the Hall of Supreme Harmony where emperors presided over coronations, royal weddings, and the most important ceremonies of the dynasty. Next is the Hall of Central Harmony where the emperor rested and prepared before going to the Taiho Palace. Finally, there is the Hall of Preserving Harmony where the imperial examinations, the highest examinations of the feudal system, were held. Located to the north is the Inner Palace or the Harem, smaller in scale but denser and more private, reserved for the emperor, empress, and royal family. The three main palaces here, Changqing, Zhaoai, and Cunning, replicate the structure of the former dynasty, but with a more family-oriented character. The number of mythical creatures on the roof corners indicates the building's rank. The Taihoa Palace is the only building that has all 10 mythical creatures led by an immortal riding a phoenix. To construct this wonder, the Chinese mobilized over 1 million laborers and 100,000 artisans. The structure used Nanmu wood, precious timber from the deep forests of southwest China, which took many years to transport to Beijing. In addition, it used golden bricks. But these were not made of gold. They were bricks fired from clay in Jiakusing for 2 years, possessing a smooth texture and a metallic sound. The wooden joints required no nails, giving the structure elasticity and the ability to withstand severe earthquakes for hundreds of years. That long imperial story finally broke in the 20th century. The Qing dynasty ended in 1911. Puyi, China's last emperor, remained in part of the palace until he was expelled in 1924. Then in 1925, the Forbidden City was formally transformed into the Palace Museum. In the heart of bustling Beijing stands a sanctuary of tranquility, its deep, blue-tiled roofs reflecting the eternal sky. The Temple of Heaven, where emperors performed their most sacred rituals to pray for national peace and prosperity, embodies the aspiration for peace and an unwavering belief in the guarantee of divine providence. Built in 1420 during the reign of Emperor Yonggul of the Ming dynasty at the same time as the Forbidden City, the Temple of Heaven became the most important sacrificial complex of the Ming and Qing dynasties. It is a masterpiece of urban planning and architecture where every detail is coded to represent the relationship between heaven and man. Everything in the complex was planned according to the ancient Chinese cosmological principle that heaven is round and earth is square. The northern section of the enclosing wall curves in a semicircular form to symbolize heaven, while the southern section is squared to represent earth. Covering about 2.73 kilometers, or roughly 674 acres, the Temple of Heaven is 4 times larger than the Forbidden City. Its most iconic structure is the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests, where the emperor came in spring to pray for an abundant harvest. The hall is circular, crowned with deep blue tiles that symbolize the sky, and built entirely of wood without metal nails. The interior of the palace is supported by 28 massive wooden columns arranged in 3 concentric circles. The 4 central columns represent the seasons. The 12 in the middle represent the months of the year, and the 12 outermost columns represent the traditional time intervals of the day. Farther south lies the circular mound altar, a 3-tiered marble platform open to the sky, where the emperor performed the winter solstice sacrifice to heaven. At circular mound altar, the number 9 appears everywhere. The number of steps and the number of paving stones in the courtyard are all multiples of 9. UNESCO inscribed the Temple of Heaven as a World Heritage Site in 1998. This is the clearest evidence that Chinese feudal politics was based on morality and harmony with nature. Nestled in the mountains of Sichuan, Mount Aim has long been regarded as a major symbol of Chinese Buddhism. In Eastern thought, this is the Dharma field of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, a symbol of practice and equality. With its highest peak, Wanfo Peak, reaching 10,167 feet, this mountain is known as Ma Mountain, the most beautiful mountain in the world. Mount Aim is incredibly vast and ancient, formed by powerful tectonic forces and bearing the mark of spectacular elevation changes, creating impressive ecological transitions from warm subtropical forests to colder plateau terrain. In the 1st and 2nd centuries, Mount Im was initially considered the 7th celestial cave, the dwelling place of Taoist immortals. By the 3rd century during the Jin dynasty, Buddhism began to penetrate the area. According to legend, a herb gatherer saw a brilliant light and the figure of a bodhisattva riding a 6-tusked white elephant on the mountaintop. From then on, the mountain was dedicated to Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, the bodhisattva of cultivation, virtuous conduct, and universal compassion. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, more than 100 temples were built, transforming the entire mountain into a vast religious complex. This is the heart of Mount Aim, where the most important structures are concentrated. The 157-foot-tall, weighs roughly 727 tons gilded bronze statue of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva faces in 10 directions, symbolizing boundless salvation for all beings. Surrounding it are the reconstructed golden, silver, and bronze halls designed to reflect sunlight, creating a radiant space amidst the sea of clouds, symbolizing the realm of ultimate bliss. EAE is not only associated with prayer, but also with discipline. Along with Shaolin in Henan and Wuang in Hubei, Aim forms the 3 pillars of Chinese martial arts. In 1996, UNESCO recognized Mount Aim along with the Lechen Giant Buddha as a mixed World Heritage Site, encompassing both cultural and natural heritage. Stretching across towering mountain peaks like an endless ribbon of stone, the Great Wall of China stands as a bridge between civilization and wilderness. This is the greatest achievement, the culmination of sweat and time over thousands of years. The Great Wall of China is not a single wall, but a multi-layered military defense system made up of ramparts, watchtowers, gates, beacon towers, and military camps. Stretching for about 13,000 m across diverse terrain from the East China Sea to the Gobi Desert. It is the world's longest man-made structure, built over more than 2,000 years. Its origins go back to the Warring States period, when rival kingdoms built separate frontier walls against both one another and the nomadic powers of the north. Under Qin Shi Huang in the 3rd century BC, some of these earlier fortifications were connected, giving rise to the first imperial vision of a long wall. The Han then pushed defenses. Long before these fires existed, the region was part of an ancient depositional world where thick beds of quartz-rich sand and sediment accumulated and later hardened into sandstone. Over immense spans of time, movements in the Earth's crust lifted those layers upward, transforming what had once been horizontal sediment into elevated land. Then erosion took over. Rainwater, surface runoff, frost action, and gravity worked their way into fractures in the rock. Because quartz sandstone is hard yet brittle, it did not wear down evenly. Instead, it split apart along vertical joints, leaving behind steep freestanding columns, ridges, and knife-edged walls. Then there is Tianmen Cave, set high in the mountain at about 4,300 feet above sea level. The opening forms a giant arch through the cliff, roughly 431 feet high. It was created when the intersection of a limestone cave collapsed under long-term water erosion, leaving behind what looks less like a cave than a gate cut straight into the mountain. Below, the famous 999 steps lead up to the cave entrance. In Chinese culture, the number 9 has long been associated with eternity and the ultimate limit of the earthly realm, leading from the surface to the gateway of heaven. This area is also the green lung of central China, with forest cover exceeding 98%. The isolation of the mountain peaks creates small ecological islands where ancient plant species such as the ginkgo and metakoya trees from prehistoric times still survive. The name Zhangjia means the territory of the Zhang family. According to historical records, after helping Emperor Gao of Han establish the dynasty, the famous General Zhang Ling retreated here to avoid death, thus forming the first settlement. However, modern technology has also appeared here. The Bong Elevator, rising 1,070 feet against a cliff face, is the world's tallest outdoor elevator. Nearby is the Grand Canyon Glass Bridge, one of the world's longest and highest glass bridges connecting 2 mountain peaks. This structure uses massive tempered glass panels so that observers can experience the entire depth of the valley below. Located across the river from Mount Aim at the confluence of the Min, Dadu, and Qinji rivers lies the Lishan giant Buddha, the world's largest Buddha statue. At 233 foot tall, it has remained in place for more than 12 centuries, witnessing the rise and fall of Chinese dynasties. The Buddha sits in a perfect posture, hands resting on his knees, and gaze down at the river below. It is a gesture of compassion. The statue represents Maitra, the Buddha of the future, a figure particularly revered during the Tang dynasty as a symbol of peace, hope, and the promise of a better era. And there was something that was kept hidden. A sophisticated drainage system was built into the statue itself with concealed channels and gutters cut into the hair, the robe, and areas behind the ears and chest, so that rainwater could be carried away before it seeped deep into the rock. Horizontal passages within the structure also help the stones stay ventilated and dry. This system helps minimize erosion and prevent the growth of moss and algae that can crack the rock structure. Few people know that the Lhasa giant Buddha was not originally exposed as it is today. During the Tang dynasty, a massive 13-story wooden structure called the Great Statue Pavilion was erected to enclose the entire statue, protecting it from the elements. However, this pavilion was completely destroyed during the wars at the end of the Wen dynasty. Since then, the statue has been directly exposed to nature and the ravages of time. In 1996, UNESCO inscribed the site as part of Mount Aim Scenic Area, including Lhasa Giant Buddha Scenic Area, recognizing it as a World Heritage Property of both cultural and natural significance. It could be said that this mountain embodies the spirit of compassion. Nestled amidst the mountains and forests of Fujian, these earth castles emerge as a miniature universe of familial love. Set among the remote valleys and tea-covered hills of Fujian, these vast earthen structures appear almost unreal at first, circular or square, sealed from the outside and profoundly still. UNESCO inscribed the Fujian Tulu as a World Heritage Site in 2008. Several stories high and designed to house as many as 800 people, they were created both as defensive architecture and as collective homes for an entire clan. These buildings are closely associated with the Hakka, a Han Chinese people whose history was shaped by migration. In that long movement away from war and instability, architecture became a form of survival. The outer walls were built with load-bearing rammed earth, often mixed with local materials such as lime, sand, stone, wood, and bamboo. Some walls were reinforced internally with strips of bamboo or branches, while the lower portions could include stone or river cobbles for added resistance. The result was a structure that could remain cool in summer, warm in winter, resistant to wind and rain, and durable enough to withstand both earthquakes and attack. Most Tulu had only one main entrance, heavily reinforced with thick wooden doors and iron plating. The lower floors had few or no exterior windows, while upper levels were fitted with openings for observation and defense. The walls themselves were thickest at the base and tapered upward, making the entire structure more stable. In circular Tulu especially, the geometry eliminated blind spots and distributed light and air more evenly across the interior. All rooms in a Tulu earthen house are typically the same size and design. There is no distinction between large and small rooms based on status. This helps maintain harmony within a community that can house up to 800 people under one roof. All resources such as the well and communal courtyard are shared. A child born in a Tulu is protected by the entire clan, and the elderly always receive care from the community. Nestled among the mountains of Guizhou, Fanjing Mountain stands as a symbol of China that is both mysterious and sacred. UNESCO inscribed it as a World Natural Heritage Site in 2018. The mountain is composed of very old metamorphic and sedimentary rocks with geological history reaching back hundreds of millions of years. Over time, uplift, faulting, and erosion have separated it from the surrounding limestone plain, creating a steep massif almost isolated from the rest of the world. This is the only place in the world where the endangered Guido snub-nosed monkey still exists. They have thick yellowish-gray fur that helps them withstand the cold mountain climate. Moving through the misty forests of Fanjing Shan in close-knit groups, they live high up in the canopy, cautious, intelligent. Its most striking feature is the Golden Cloud Red Peak, a narrow rock column rising majestically from the main mountain massif split by a deep chasm. The peak is divided into two nearly symmetrical halves. A small bridge spans the gap connecting two temples located above the gorge. One temple is dedicated to Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha of the present day. During the Ming Dynasty, the Huani Emperor revered Fanjing Shan as the source of all mountains and the pillar of heaven and earth. Under imperial patronage, temples were built across the mountain and the site was formally honored as a sacred Bodhikanda of Mitra Buddha. Pilgrims must ascend by navigating 8,888 stone steps, many so steep they are almost vertical. This number is symbolic of prosperity, the eternal cycle, and a measure of a process of asceticism. Known as the Alps of the East, Mount Segunyang emerges with an elegant and ethereal beauty amidst the Huangguan mountain range. It belongs to the Sichuan Giant Panda Sanctuary's World Heritage Property, recognized by UNESCO for its ecological importance and for containing more than 30% of the world's wild giant panda habitat. It is a system of steep granite and metamorphic peaks formed by tectonic uplift and eroded by the Quaternary Ice Age. The mountain system is approached through three main valleys, each carrying its own atmosphere. The Shuangkou Valley is home to majestic limestone peaks and withered forests within frozen lakes, bearing witness to the shifting course of ancient glaciers. Chongping Valley stretches for about 18 m, preserving old trails, rich native vegetation, and a quieter rhythm of movement through forest and meadow. It is also the valley most closely associated with trekking routes toward the foot of Yomfong, the highest of the Four Sisters peaks, and it carries traces of Tibetan religious presence through its monastery landscapes. The Haisui Valley is the highest of the three valleys and was formed by melting glaciers. It also preserves fossils of marine life from a time when the mountain was still submerged hundreds of millions of years ago. This is a vibrant palette of colors in the heart of a barren land. Danjia Jiang, a masterpiece of geological strata and minerals where mountain rocks blaze in shades of fire and earth. In the arid landscapes of Gansu within Jiang National Geopark, the hills rise in bands of red, yellow, green, gray, and black as if a giant hand had swept color across stone. With very little vegetation to cover the slopes, the full structure of the rock is left exposed, allowing the mountain's layered colors to stand out with almost unreal clarity. Its beauty began far below the surface of an ancient world around 114 to 106 million years ago. This region was part of a vast continental basin of rivers and lakes where layers of sandstone, siltstone, and mudstone accumulated over time. Iron-rich sand layers upon contact with oxygen form iron oxide hematite, giving the characteristic red color. Other minerals such as limonite create yellow, chlorite green, and magnetite gray/black. Variations in mineral concentration and climatic conditions at the time of deposition create alternating color bands. What transformed those horizontal beds into rolling ribbons of color was tectonic force. As geological stresses related to the growth of the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau and the wider uplift associated with the India-Asia collision reshaped this region, the once flat sedimentary layers were folded, tilted, fractured, and lifted. Despite being an arid region, rare heavy rains have seeped into the crevices, eroding the soft rock layers and leaving behind sharp peaks and sturdy cliffs. What lies before us now is not just an ancient town. It is a fortress built to seal off the pulse of currency and the discipline of merchants where history still lingers amidst moss-covered corridors and the glow of red lanterns. Pingao Ancient City. Pingao is one of the 4 best-preserved ancient cities in China. It was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997. It runs for about 4 miles, rises roughly 39 feet high, and is reinforced with 72 watchtowers and more than 3,000 battlements. Bin Dao is designed in the shape of a giant turtle, a sacred animal symbolizing longevity and stability in Eastern culture. With 6 gates, the south gate represents the turtle's head, the north gate its tail, and the 4 gates on the east and west sides represent its 4 legs. The main streets run north, south, and east, west, interwoven with hundreds of small alleys, forming a network resembling the patterns on a turtle's shell. Outside the city walls was a system of deep moats, drawbridge bridges, and protruding watchtowers that allowed the defenders to observe and snipe the enemy from multiple directions. In 1823, Rishinchong was established in Pinggao as China's first draft bank, transforming a former dye business into a remittance institution that allowed merchants to transfer value without hauling large quantities of silver through dangerous territory. From Pinggao, these Pinggao established a network of branches throughout China and spread to Russia, Japan, and India. At its peak, Pinggao controlled more than half of the financial lifeline of the entire Qing dynasty. The Pinggao employed an extremely complex system of handwritten ciphers and seals to prevent counterfeiting, an astonishing level of security for the 19th century. Towards the end of the Qing dynasty and the beginning of the Republic of China, when modern Western banks appeared in Shanghai and Hong Kong, Pinggao's banknote system collapsed. The city fell into economic stagnation for nearly a century. Because of this lack of economic development, Pinggao was not swept up in the wave of urbanization and demolition of old buildings to construct high-rises throughout the 20th century. When China opened up, Pinggao emerged as an intact urban fossil after hundreds of years of deep slumber. Beneath the ethereal mists of Hunan province lies a world that seems to exist only in the pages of memories and ancient ink paintings. Fanghuang, ancient town set in the Xiangxi Tujia and Mao Autonomous Prefecture of Hunan. Fanghuang was built in 1704 and later developed as an important military settlement in a rugged borderland where imperial power met the resistant highlands of the Miao world. In earlier centuries, this was not a peaceful place at the edge of a postcard. It was part of a contested frontier. Fanghuang stood within a mountainous region that Ming and Qing authorities sought to control. And nearby ran what is often called the Southern Great Wall, or the Miao Frontier Wall, a long military fortification built by the Ming to defend Han settlements against uprisings and raids in the southwest. The town's old stone walls and fortified setting were part of that same logic. What survives now as atmosphere once belonged to a world full of instability. The architectural icon of Fanghuang is the stilt house, the Dioja Lu, reflected in the Dajiang River. Due to the limited flat land along the river and frequent flooding, the Miao and Tujia people designed their houses with part of them on the bank and the other part extending into the river, supported by slender but extremely sturdy pinewood pillars. The houses are built entirely of wood using mortise and tenon joints without nails. The roofs are covered with gray yin-yang tiles, creating a harmonious contrast with the turquoise color of the river water. The lowest floor is usually left open to avoid dampness and flooding, while the upper floors are used for living, taking advantage of the cool breeze and creating optimal living space in the canyon terrain. The river is the town's main artery. One of the most distinctive features of the river is the ancient stone stepping bridge, a series of stone steps laid across the river, allowing people to cross from one bank to the other without needing a bridge. Built during the Kangxi era, these are loose stone pillars driven into the riverbed. A clever and economical transportation solution and also tactical, easily dismantled or controlled in times of war. Nearby is the Red Bridge, a covered bridge that serves as a walkway, shelter, observation deck, and market space all at once. Here, daily life slows down. This is where the Tujia and Miao people appear authentic and intimate. Their colorful costumes and the heavy silver hats of Miao women contrasting with the symmetry of the stone and wooden architecture, creating a unique human identity for the Shaanxi region. We have left the dazzling avenues behind to penetrate a different reality where the boundary between man and God, between earth and heaven becomes as thin as the mist on the summit of Mount Funjing. What you have just seen is not the China of advertising posters, but a civilization forged from the great solitude of the mountains and forests and the harsh discipline of will.